Come pick me up, drag me from the shadows, babe. Give me your love, you'll be my escape. Come turn me on, key inside the engine, babe. Lead the way, it's okay. Front seat, calling shotgun, my lover.
Hello, welcome and welcome back to Gavin Reads It All. This is a special video today because this is my video part of the big collaboration series that I'm doing with my besties, Gabby from Gabbyreads and Katie from Katie Colson. We decided to do this last year. It's been so long in the making that we're finally getting around to doing our cheeky little video series. So me, Gabby and Katie have decided to pick 3 books and we each picked a book and that book would be featured on that person's channel. So we already did a Middle of the Night by Ready Saga for Gabby's channel, which you can watch now. I will leave a link down in the description box. In the future, we will be doing A Certain Hunger by Chelsea J. Summers for Katie's channel. So keep an eye out for that. I will link it down below as well once it's uploaded. I'm very excited to see what we end up thinking of that one. But today, we are doing Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell for my channel. So I picked this book for us. Hopefully this is the best book of the 3 and it ain't no competition, but I'm going to make it a competition, okay? Whichever person has the best book, and Gabby's already because we all hated Middle of the Night, but whoever picked the best book wins $1 million, I think. I think that's right. I think that's what we should do. Oh no, should we have like a kind of forfeit or something? Like, I'm trying to think, how can we make this a game? How can we really screw someone over? I should probably talk to Gabby and Katie about that first. So yes, today we're reading Someone You Can Build a Nest In, and I'm so excited for this because I've heard it's a cozy, sapphic horror fantasy, and I've never read anything like that before, so I'm very intrigued. And my friend Jade also put on Goodreads, a surprising blend of horror and wholesome. I'm like, that's what people call me. I'm gonna need to audiobook this as well as read it physically because the main character is called Shen. I will find out via the audiobook. And she is a shape-shifting monster who has fallen in love. There was some kind of incident at She's swamp and she ends up getting nursed back to health by a human called Homily. And she thinks that Homily would be a good co-parent. Now listen to this. An ideal place to lay Shen's eggs so their young could devour Homily from the inside out. But as they grow close, she realizes humans don't think about love that way. So we have a monster who thinks that true love is getting their egg offspring to devour their love from the inside out. And so I think they have to kind of learn not to do that, because obviously that's not right. So there's lots going on, lots of drama, lots of horror, lots of fantasy, and I'm just so excited to actually just see how I can possibly describe this book. It sounds like one that is going to be hard to do. Even Naomi Kritzer on the back says, the coziest, most unexpectedly wholesome love story about a monster who devours humans and wears their bones that I've ever read. Look, I'm all about strange, I'm all about the unique. So let's get into it. This video will be split into sections. There are 8 parts in this book, so there's going to be 4 parts of this video covering 2 parts each. I will have everything timestamped down below. Everything will have spoilers as well, so I would totally recommend reading this book first and then watching this video, or read along with this video as well. So if you're reading this book right now and you want to like read the first 2 parts and then watch the first 2 parts with mine, Gabby's and Katie's opinions, you know, just like a book club, which is the best part about this video series, is that you could join in on this read along too, then you can absolutely do that too. Or if you just want us to read it for you and you have no intention of reading this, then feel free to go ahead and watch the video. So please do like the video if you enjoy, subscribe if you haven't already, and also subscribe to my friends Gabby and Katie, who will be linked in the description box. Gabby, Katie, take it away.
Hello, how's it going, Gavin's channel? What's up? I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're taking care of yourself.
Hey, what's up? Hello, it's Katie Colson. We're gonna get right into it. Gavin, we all chose things that we thought, oh, This kind of represents what I like to read. And it doesn't really matter if the other two people like love that genre or would read that. Like, I mean, Gabby picked Middle of the Night, and Gavin, I know you and I were like, absolutely not Riley Sager. But then we were like, okay, Gabby, for you, we will show up to the front lines. We will read Middle of the Night. But Gavin, you picked Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. And I'd never heard of this book before. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Because I see what you did. I see what you did. You chose a book that you might enjoy, that Gabby probably won't.
I'm not the biggest fantasy reader. I know that this book falls into the kind of like cozy fantasy, horror, romance genres. So there are a lot of things about those genres that do intrigue me because I am a big horror reader and I'm a big romance reader, but fantasy is definitely outside of my comfort zone. And I'm not gonna lie, starting this book in part 1, which was about like the first 30 pages, I was getting a little nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, it was feeling so heavy fantasy for me at the start of this.
This is the thing, I've never read like a kind of cozy horror before. And would I say this is cozy so far?
I am obsessed. I'm obsessed. Look, what? I'm sorry. Excuse me? Who? What? I told myself I read the first 2 parts, or the first 13 chapters, basically, of this 2 or 3 days ago. I read it again, twice, and then just now read it again.
Oh, she's crazy.
The main character that we're following in this book is a shapeshifter.
Sorry. Her name is Shisheshin? Katie, get it right. Shisheshin. Yes.
And she's like a monster.
She eats people for sustenance and takes the people and can kind of reuse their body parts and things to make things out of. And like, say, for example, she takes a bear trap and reuses it as her jaws when she wants to kill someone. I'm obsessed with her.
There was so much language being used right at the beginning that I thought was like hard to understand at first. Like there's these things called worms, it's spelled with a Y, and they said that this is a word that was for whatever greedy humans wanted dead and were too afraid to kill themselves.
Can we talk about for a second just how cute and adorable this can be, but also how incredibly horrifying too? The body horror, when it talks about tendons, I was gagging. Shisheshin, she has a set of wigs she'd made from the scalps that people hadn't been using anymore. I'm like, well, yeah, probably because he killed them.
And like right at the start of this book, she's like being hunted by these guys and they're trying to get her killed. And then she very like graphically, like gruesomely kills these guys and she eats them and like she's able to like tear off her skin. And like the descriptions of that were so gory and like so intense. I was like, whoa.
When I tell you there's a part of this book where she literally peels the skin off of her own face. And I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever read. I'm sorry, Gavin. I don't know what to say. I love it. And I have tried to think of how to formulate that into words so many times.
It's weird to have a main character who is this monster and just talks so cavalier about, is that the right word? Cavalier? Caviar? Cavalier about killing people and, you know, like how nice it would be to just like eat someone right in front of them. You know, I kind of love that. It's kind of refreshing to get a POV like that, a POV from a monster, in getting their insights on humans and how we can get like this really unfiltered, very honest look at humans.
I still can't figure out what my tabbing system should be because I love it so much. And also, I will say one other thing. I'm so sorry, Gavin. I'm so sorry. I'm sure I'm rambling. Gavin, listen, editing Gavin, you hear me? I'm so sorry. This has to be such a bitch.
You're the bitch. It has been pretty action-packed so far, at least in the first part, like parts 1 and 2. It's been quite action-packed. A lot has already happened. When we meet Shisheshin straight away, she is in her own kind of cave, her own swamp, like her turf, essentially. And she's hibernating. Like, how gross is this? Let's just go through some of the gross stuff. She opened pockets in her flesh and took in her first real breath of the season. The harder ends of her makeshift bones tore apart her insides, and her poor tissues had to generate cartilage and tendons to adjust. Oh, like anything that talks about tendons, I get sweaty, I get so uncomfortable. And it's really weird that, you know, we're getting these like really disgusting visuals, but I'm still like eating this up. almost as if I was Shisheshan eating people up. And Blueberry's so cute. Like, Blueberry's a bear. Blueberry's a bear who kind of helps Shisheshan, and like, imagine having a bear called Blueberry. I do love some of the atmosphere of this. I love the main village where she goes to. What was it called again? Like Undertown, Undertaking? Underlook. So Underlook is the place where Shisheshan goes after she's been kind of like chased out of her, you know, little dwelling in the form of a woman in this kind of like Red Riding Hood cloak thing. I'm loving the visuals. It feels very fairy tale-esque.
I'm also just really vibing with the writing style of this so far, which I didn't think that I would, but I like some of the quotes in this book have been so good. Like when she says, weaknesses were a human invention. They called it your weakness if they fantasized about murdering you with it. Like, okay, that's kind of facts, like, pop off.
And you're getting those observations of Shisheshan of the people. Yeah, the citizens of Underlook were vultures. And if humans got used to the presence of gods, they'd probably hunt them for profit and glory. So, like, you do get so much raw honesty when it comes to humans through the perspective of a monster.
I love when you get like the monster's point of view in a fairy tale rather than the hero's point of view. It's so beautiful and poignant because, like, say there's just a random thing. There's so many of them, but one of the random things that just stuck into my head is where Shisheshan says that she's seeing this group of people in a town that's dancing and celebrating, and that they're wearing leather and hide. And she's like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm the monster? I'm the monster. These people hunt, kill, skin, and eat their quote-unquote prey. I'm sorry, I've never worn the skin of something I've killed while I ate it, but I'm the monster? And I was like, okay, that's a good way to put it, actually.
I like when she says, nobody actually helped each other. That's why people had religions, hoping gods would provide help where people refused. Like, that's a good quote.
And I love when Shisheshan says humans were so creative in their disappointments. I mean, yeah, it's true.
Another thing I super am loving about this, because one, it's a debut. How also this stands true that horror debuts, 5 stars. I love a horror debut. But John Wiswell, how is this written by a man? How was this written by a man? I would never have believed you said this was written by a man. But also, look at this man. Is he not the cutest? The sweetest little bean you've ever seen? I love him. I don't know him, don't know anything about him, but I'm telling you, I love this man. Take a bullet for him.
I don't read a lot of fantasy, so I was just struggling to keep up with the plot of this book, let alone having an opinion on what was going on. But then very quickly in part 2 of this book, there's kind of like a romantic story introduced between our main character and this other woman. And so we kind of have like a sapphic thing going on.
I, for some reason, for no logical reason, thought that this was going to be a male, like, homosexual vampire story. Don't know where I got that from. I do not know why I thought that. That is not what this is at all.
What's really interesting me about this romance is the fact that, you know, our main protagonist, she's a monster, so she's not technically human. But this other character, the love interest, she is human.
And Homily doesn't know she's the monster and treats her like a human and treats her with compassion and love. And it's so sweet.
I do love the like sweetness between Homily and Shisheshan, the confusion that Shisheshan kind of has to begin with, but it goes very quickly. The love between them seems to develop very, very quickly. When I say love between them, I think, you know, I'm trying to rationalize it, and obviously Shisheshan, she sees Homily, and, you know, Homily is helping her after she's fallen into the ravine and she's bringing her back to health and everything. So, you know, even as a monster, I guess there is some kind of, you know, obligation there to, like, be thankful to the person who has saved your life.
So incredibly gay. And I mean gay. Gay! Like, why did we not read this in June? This is queer, lesbian, sapphic, like, erotic. It is the most tense, sapphic energy you have ever seen.
I do tend to love the trope, okay? I do love the trope of, like, a human falling for a creature that's, like, not human, because I love the, like, things that they have to understand about each other.
Like, when she's focusing on blushing, and then she's like, oh, she would kill this woman tomorrow instead. Like, it's like she's kind of delaying her monster instinct, or her monster nature, to kind of just see what Homily's about.
There was also a quote when she was like, romance was awful. She couldn't even do something as simple as murdering rude people anymore.
So like we're getting these like very brand new experiences for Shisheshin, and it's kind of sweet.
I love that we're following a character who's like experiencing romantic feelings for like the first time ever in her life. I just think it's so cute. Like, it's so adorably written.
And when Homily laughs, Shisheshin is like, laughter. The human woman was laughing. Shisheshin had heard it before, but never caused it, never received it as a reaction. Heh, Shisheshin said, trying to approximate polite mirth. Like, it's kind of funny to see how Shisheshin is trying to fit in with Homily and kind of go along with all of the stuff that she's doing and trying to be a little bit human.
And what I love is that in this world, it doesn't seem to be, as far as I am in this book, to be taboo for it to be sapphic. Because there's a part where one of the monster killers that like goes to whatever, try and kill her. Another guy is like, Laurent, bring your deceptively sexual? What am I saying? Sensual? Luscious? I don't remember. He's like, bring your like luscious ass over here and tell me what happened. And I was like, a man screaming that to another man in a town that's having a bonfire over killing a monster. Tell me queer is acceptable without telling me queer is acceptable.
When they go dancing later on and Shisheshin is like, can I have this dance? Because she's observed everyone else doing it, so she's like, can I have this dance? And then they're dancing and it's so sweet. She put her palm up, fingers extended. Other couples have done it all night.
Even talking about it, I'm like, oh my god, so good.
Shadi, this was how love felt to everyone. It only seemed odd because it was Shisheshin's first time. Was she blushing? Like, it's kind of sweet, like...
I already love the kind of like banter that these two women are having with each other.
Some more cute things between Homily and Shisheshin. Homily says, you found the river and the next thing you knew I was caring for your injuries. You probably think I'm some sort of angel. I'm not. And then Shisheshin says, I like you better than angels. Oh my god. Like, I'm giggling. I'm actually giggling.
The fact that the tension between these two women is not because it's queer, but because they both have secrets and they should not, quote unquote, societally be together. I love it.
So not only is this a little bit horrifying, a little bit cute, it's also a little bit funny. So this is pretty much a mix of everything so far.
If you love this, if you've read Swordheart by T. Kingfisher, you will love Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. These synonymous, okay? In a slightly lesser way, but also exactly the same reader, Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. Yes, they have the exact same energy, especially with the main character. Like, the main character in Nettle and Bone, they're the same person. Shishian is the main character in this. Also, in a slightly lesser way, but also if you like this, give it a chance. Have you heard of Doorway? Sean McGuire. I was about to be like, oh my god, are these all by T. Kingfisher? Sean McGuire, if you like the We Were Children series, I think you should try this. Because it's fantasy in the fairy tale, like kind of whimsical, childhood-esque, but dark twist that this has, except this is like horror. This is horror like, yeah, but this is horror like I'm skinning my own face.
You know what's wild too is that the last time that I read something that I could even compare to this that's like a cozy fantasy is actually Legends and Lattes. This was a book that I read at the end of last year, and I don't know why, this is like the only thing that I could think to compare this to right now. But I feel like in some ways, these are kind of reminding me of each other. I mean, granted, this book is a lot more gory and gruesome, and you know, like there's a lot more horror themes happening in this book. But the cozy fantasy vibe of it and the sapphic romance is definitely reminding me of Legends and Lattes.
But now we're gonna get a little bit of drama.
We find out that this girl, Homily, like the human that she's interacting with, there's a plot twist that she's actually the daughter of like the woman who was hunting the monsters at the beginning of this book.
The worm they think is Shisheshin, and Shisheshin has apparently cursed the Wolfire family in, I just heard, either Ash or Torbo go on the letterbox to have a shit right now. They did this yesterday. I was 2 minutes into filming a video and they went for a shit. Anyway, yeah, Homily wants to find the worm and kill it, otherwise the curse will happen and either she or her siblings will die next. So now we have this dilemma.
I'm pretty sure our main protagonist ate this girl's brother. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what just happened. And I'm like, oh shit, like that is so juicy.
Homily wants an end to the worm and this curse. everyone thinks the worm is Shisheshan, and Shisheshan is like, curse? What curse?
It was kind of an interesting, like, twist thing that I didn't see coming. I mean, I now realize that all of this was actually mentioned in the, you know, premise of the book. So at this point in time, we've only read things that have been described in the premise, so I'm kind of curious to see where a story like this goes.
So I am so intrigued to find out what will happen next. It's going so fast though.
And because this is something that is like so out of my comfort zone, I'm actually kind of excited to see like where the story goes, you know, because I don't read a lot of fantasy. Usually it's something that I'm not very interested in, but I am very invested in the romance or whatever is happening between these two characters. I'm listening to this one on audio, by the way, and the audiobook I think is really good. I love the accent of the narrator.
And the audiobook narrator says Shisheshan's words so, like, directly and so dryly. It comes across as even funnier with the audiobook. I'm loving it.
I love it. I pray to God I am not coming to you later with different updates, but as of right now, I truly think this could be a 5-star best of the year. I am so obsessed. And Gavin, thank you so much for making me read this, because I am having the time of my freaking life.
And so I am surprised that I'm enjoying this so far. Like, who would have thought that I would say such positive things about a fantasy book?
Hold on. I'm on page 88. I just had a thought, and I was like, you know, I want to say it just in case. What if Shisheshan's dad, who is the one that, this is going to sound crazy if you haven't read this book, and even if you have, it sounds crazy. He's the one that gave birth, technically, whatever, to Shisheshan, because it's supposed to be that these like monsters or these worms or whatever lay eggs in their partner, whoever like they love and like want to, you know, procreate with, I guess. And then the children or child like of this the monster grows and then eats their parents' body to sort of to live and to like take their bones and like everything to like become a creature. I'm sorry. I feel like it makes sense in my head, and when I'm saying it out loud, it makes no sense at all. But anyway, what if Shisheshan's dad was Homilie's dad? Because Homilie says that the worm drug her dad off screaming, or that's what her mom says. Drug? I'm not doing very good. The sun is out, and I'm still acting like this. Drug her dad away, like screaming to do something to him, to do vile things to him. And I'm like, what if that didn't happen and he left Homilie's mom to be with the worm because they were in love, and then chose to die because he wanted to be like the nest, you know, like someone you could build a nest in, for the worm, who's Shisheshan's mom, who the monster hunters killed. This is making so much sense because the monster hunters were sent by Homilie's mom. And I feel like maybe Homilie's mom, who we haven't met yet, was bitter and butthurt because she got left, even though he was like a king. He's a king, right? Is she a princess? I'm sorry. Anyway, well, he's rich and popular in town, I guess, royal. And he left her to go be with this worm. So I think that the mom was like, oh my God, no. Oh my God, like there's a curse on our family. Oh my God, like they took my poor husband and he's dead. And said like, oh, the curse is coming for all of us. So go and hunt down this worm and kill it. The only thing I don't like about that is that would mean Shisheshan and Homilie are sisters. Which is gross for obvious reasons. But I mean, she's a different creature, so does that count? Does that make it different? I don't know. But yeah, if I'm wrong, I don't know, but I wanted to say that. And yeah, I'm barely into the second part, but I am so obsessed with this book.
Katie, I love the energy, but there are some things that should have stayed in the drafts. Incest. You wanted this story. I mean, cool plot twist. That would have been a very cool plot twist. But then the incest, let's just consider. I love the fact that you were trying to rationalize incest. Yeah, but she's a different creature. So, they'd still be related.
Hey, hello. I just hit part 5 of the book, so I am checking in for the second update.
I love it so much. God forbid we have a beautiful gown with a beautiful personality. I'm sorry, Miss America, what would you like to say to the crowd? Deserve me.
It's getting later and later, and all I want to do is just cozy up and read this cozy horror fantasy queer romance, okay?
I'm not even halfway through. 5 stars. Do you know how much John Wiswell would have to the bed for this not to be 5 stars? He would have to literally come into my house, that bed right there, and take a deuce on it for me to have anything but glowing things to say about not just this book, but this man. How was this written by a man? I well and truly do not understand. I'm telling you right now, as a infamous male author hater when they are doing unfortunate things, okay? Like, I don't shy away from calling that kind of stuff out. I'm telling you, full chest, this is one of the best depictions of feminism and women in general that I've ever read, and it's written by a man.
The third part of the book, it was a really short part, and there wasn't too much that happened in that section of the book. There was a lot of scenes of like her, you know, eating humans. She was talking about like how she needs to eat humans in order to like keep her shape, in order to like stay functioning.
I'm trying to visualize it, but say when they're giving Rosemary wine at the supper, and Shishenshin, inside her she grabbed one of the lungs humans liked so much and held the opening of it to the back of her mouth. All the unwanted rosemary poison went straight into the lung, a temporary bladder. I'm trying so hard to visualize, and it's just, I mean, one, it's making me a little bit nauseous, but two, it's just so hard to like visualize like how she brings a lung to the back of her throat from the inside, and like, it's keeping it grim. It is keeping it grim.
We find out that Homilie's character, she actually doesn't have the best sense of smell, and so like it makes sense why our main protagonist is able to like cover up the scent of like her eating people all of the time around her.
I'm trying to figure out if Homilie knows that she's in a relationship with Shishenshin, because this is in third person, but it's like predominantly like Shishenshin's POV. We predominantly get more of her like thoughts and feelings. So like the narrator does say, for now it's important to let Homilie feel like she was doing work that mattered while not exposing Shishenshin to feeling like she had to die to please her girlfriend. So like she's calling her girlfriend now. And then later on as well, when she's talking about the Baroness, who is an absolute queen, she says that she might have to kill her mother-in-law. And I'm like, how do we get from girlfriend to wife? You know what I mean? It's like, I kind of love how innocent that is, because I am ashamed to admit a lot of the times I do end up marrying people in my head after knowing them for about 10-20 minutes. So like, I totally get it.
No one's ever, oh my god, wait, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Why? Because you're here. Because you're here. I love it 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 here. I love this book. I love it. I love it. Is this the best lesbian romance I've ever read? Yes. Yeah, definitively. It is. Oh my god. How did a man write this? How did a man named John write this book? Like, Mr. Wiswell, take your Pulitzer Prize. I'm gifting it to you.
It was also so cute. Oh my god, there was a scene where our main protagonist, Shishishen, she noticed that she was bleeding. And she's like, how is this possible? Because like she doesn't have blood, right? And she doesn't have all of these things. So she's like, whose blood is this? And then she like looks into herself and sees that there's like an organ that's growing, which is like a heart, basically. And I'm like, oh my god, literally this girl is making her grow a heart. Like, stop, that is so cute. And she's like, oh my god, like I need to get rid of this organ, like what is going on?
Also, I'm hoping we don't get any tentacle porn during this, because Shishenshin does have, well, tentacles every now and then. So I'm just hoping that we don't get the tentacle porn. I feel like things are moving fast in terms of the romance from Shishenshin's side, more so than Homilie's side. But we aren't really that privy to knowing Homilie's feelings exactly, other than what she like says outright.
Shishishen, she ended up meeting this girl Homilie's family. And it turns out that her whole family, they're just a bunch of assholes. Like, all of her siblings are assholes. Her mom is like the biggest bitch. Like, oh my god, her mom is just so rude.
The Baroness is a queen. Like, she is iconic. I kind of low-key love her, but like hate her. Like, she's awful, but she's a good little villain. You know what I mean? Like, I can just picture her as like a Disney villain, like Maleficent, or like the evil queen. You know, like, she just seems to be so ruthless.
I hated the way that her mom treated her, and the way that her mom just broke the news to her about her brother being dead. Just being like, oh, well, while you were prancing around and doing your research, your brother's been dead. Like, just the way she said it was just so rude. It was like she was trying to blame her, or just trying to imply that she's like the reason that something happened to her brother. Like, I don't know, the way that her mom speaks to her is just so toxic and so awful.
You know, there's just something not adding up with the whole family curse thing. I would bet that the Baroness had made up this curse just to exact revenge for whoever killed the father of the family.
Once the family actually got brought in and it wasn't just being spoken about, I was like, this has, oh my god, so much Lannister energy. Her younger sister, but not the youngest, Epigraph, which I need to look up what these names mean because they have to mean something because they are wild. Epigraph, and I can't remember, Catharsis? It was like something like that. The brother are said to look very similar. They both have blonde hair, and it's very Cersei and Jaime Lannister vibes because Epigraph, the girl, will wear her brother's armor, and it's gold. Lannisters, I'm just saying. And they're like ruthless and seem like they care a little bit too much about each other than maybe a brother and sister normally would. And I'm like, oh my god, that's hilarious. And then the younger daughter, son, Ode? What is Ode? Anyway, is Joffrey Baratheon. Like a literal demonic tyrant.
I will die for Blueberry. I'm not even joking. If anyone harms that beautiful blue bear, I'm going to go ape shit on their ass. They're talking about Blueberry being like the last of the colourful bears. And I kind of love learning a little bit more about this world and the history of this world. It's sprinkled in. It's like, it's not really like thrown at you, but every now and then it's relevant information. And right now they're talking about the bear. They're talking about Blueberry. And I'm like, no, you leave Blueberry alone. If anyone touches a hair on Blueberry's head, I'm going to shove their head up my goddamn and they're not gonna like it because I'm gonna. So you know what I mean? I can't bear that thought.
I'm blown away. And I'm sorry that I am not keeping like dedicated notes of like what exactly is happening and how I'm reacting to what is happening, because I'm just having so many emotions that I am paying such close attention to everything. But I'm not keeping notes. I am tabbing and writing in it like a madwoman.
In this section, you do feel a lot more sorry for Homily. Like, her mother, the Baroness, treats her like shit. And it's so nice to have Shishenshin there, who takes no shit from anyone.
The way that she thinks in her head, it's just freaking hilarious. Like when she said, killing was simpler than a conversation. Civilization made everything so complicated. Like, I love that about this. I love that about her character.
I love the moment when, you know, like, Shishenshin is almost getting paid off to leave, but Shishenshin doesn't do it. And then during the supper, Shishenshin says, oh, did you get the money? Yeah, I thought you would need it more than me. It's just like...
Our main character's like, no, actually, like, I'm not leaving. Thanks.
She doesn't realise just how catty she can be. Like, she's fitting in so well as a human. I don't know if maybe she's fitting in a little bit too well, though. Because, you know, she is supposed to be a monster, you know, far removed from civilization. And she only ever, like, comes out to, like, hunt humans. And, I don't know, sometimes she just seems to be, like, getting a little bit too easily or getting a little bit too quickly. That aside, I'm still, like, very much enjoying this.
I feel like our main protagonist, Shishishen, she is such a badass. Like, the way she talks to these people, I love when she tells him, you will get me access to the building. If you do not, I will pick an orifice of yours. You will discover which one I pick when you feel me climbing into you. Eventually, you will be less of a person and more of a suit of clothes. You will not believe the things I will do while I wear you. Oh my god, what? Like, she's such a baddie.
The plot is still really good. I mean, there was a little bit of a moment where I was like, I wonder if we're like going to slow down now. But by the end of this part, we do have the Baroness being like, okay, we need to burn... I keep wanting to call it Overlook, but that's The Shining. Underlook. It's the opposite of Overlook. It's Underlook.
They're literally ready to, like, burn down the world just to protect their family.
Like, she doesn't care who gets hurt. As long as she gets her revenge, she stops this curse on her family. And that is giving me Frollo vibes from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. You know when he's going to burn Paris to the ground? That's what it's starting to sound like to me. The Baroness I guess is almost a little bit like Frollo. Maybe a mix between like Maleficent and Frollo and the Evil Queen. I'd say a lot of Disney, like twisted Disney in my head right now.
Her mom like goes on this tangent where she's like,
I'm gonna lead the army myself. I'm not gonna have you guys go fight for me. Y'all are my backup because I'm gonna kill the monster.
I will not live in fear of it. I will lead the hunt myself.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The monologue was actually badass. I, up until that point, hated her. And then I was like, oh, she's a little hot. She's a little hottie.
It'll be interesting to see like how far they go, because now Shishenshin is like trying to cover her back and be like, yeah, I will hunt the monster for you when the monster is herself. As well as the journey that Homily needs to go on too, because she's thinking that she's selfish, but she's only thinking that because her mother is telling her that. Were you selfish when you fished me out of the river? Philosophers write about this. I only do it to feel pleasure about having done it. It's not a virtue. I'm not a good person. So that'll be interesting to explore if Homily can kind of step out of her mother's degradation.
But dude, the way that this section ended, oh my god, I like almost screamed because I thought it was so funny. I love how this chapter just ends with the sentence, she was going to eat her mother-in-law for the common good. I love her. I love this main character. She's so cool. It's just so funny to me because like it does have a lot of those like common tropes that I do like in stories like this, where like it's kind of a forbidden romance because like their families are at odds and against each other. And then it's also like the fish out of water, like somebody trying to figure out how to seem normal or how to like appear more human. I do love that trope too. But like, oh my god, the way she's kind of like turning that trope on its head by being like, yeah, I'm gonna eat my mother-in-law. Like that's hilarious. Like, I don't know, I'm loving it so far. Holy shit, there was so much that happened in the last 100 pages.
Shit well and truly hit the fan in this pod.
Still obsessed. Look at the tabs. Is this a joke? Are you freaking kidding me?
There were a lot of like action scenes or like battle scenes where they were battling these monsters, and I'm not gonna lie, like I personally found it a little bit hard to visualize at times. There was like a monster that specifically had a bunch of like deer skulls in it, and like it was a bunch of deer skulls. I don't know, I couldn't fully like visualize or understand exactly what I was reading, and I don't know if that's just because I don't read fantasy very often, so like I find it hard to like visualize these battle scenes with these monsters. But then like the deer skull creature monster thing ended up snatching her little sister and like eating her little sister right in front of them, so that was crazy.
Oda's dead.
I was kind of rooting for her to die, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know she was like a little girl, but hear me out.
My jaw was in hell. My jaw was in hell. I mean, better her than Blueberry. You know, don't kill the dog. Don't kill the dog. But I can't believe he went there. That's crazy. And it's not a jump scare. It's not a, oh, what, did it happen? Oh, yeah, she got eaten. And you see her tiny little children legs kicking in the air. And then it goes, and then you hear a snap. And she's done.
She was just like this awful, selfish, spoiled little brat. You know when Blueberry is like captured? She kept being like, why doesn't it roll? Dragons and lions and bears go roll. It should roll. Why is it making dumb, sad noises? You know, she was sounding a little bit like a Veruca Salt, but made even worse. And like literally the amount of time she kept saying, show me a roll. I don't know if you have seen, I think it's Shrek 3 that this happens in, when that little boy's like, do the roar.
Do the roar.
And I do get quite a lot of Shrek vibes in this. Like, you could really say Shishenshin is a sort of like Shrek character, and Homily is maybe a sort of Princess Fiona character.
And then of course, you know, like Homily's mother is like blaming her for like the little sister getting murdered. Her mother just like blames her for everything wrong that goes wrong in their lives.
I wanted to say more monster stuff with Shishenshin. All we're really getting with Shishenshin is like the gross stuff, but I want the monster stuff. I want the like, you know, the terrorizing people. And one thing I wish we had have had before the plot kicked in pretty much straight away, of her, you know, becoming like human shaped. I wish we had seen more of her as a monster before she started to like really become human. Her feelings for Homily feel like they are coming along a little bit too quickly, and I kind of really just wanted to see more of the terror that a monster would have. But instead we've got more like, you know, the internal stuff, the gross body stuff that we're getting with Shisheshin.
I do think this book is written in a way that it's very gruesome. Like, some of these descriptions, I'm like, oh my god, like, it is graphic and it is violent.
I want more monster stuff.
I also love that, like, she kind of felt like her heart was, like, behaving weirdly this whole time, and then you eventually find out that it's not the heart, it's actually, like, her sack of eggs or whatever. And apparently, like, her sack of eggs, it's like her body wants to nest with Homily.
I feel like people are gonna think that's disgusting or like gross or like, why did he do that? But I'm like, oh my god, that's so cute.
I don't fully understand it. I don't fully get what that's about, but I think it's so sweet because I think it means that she like wants to nest with her and like make a family with her, I think is what that means.
She didn't choose for it to happen. It happened because she's in love with Homily and they don't have to like have sex. So I'm like, that's amazing. I love that. And it's like, means that it's like true love. You know? Like, so I think that's beautiful. Anyway, if I'm a sicko, then arrest me, officer.
Was I wrong for kind of shipping the Baroness and Shisheshin more than Homily? Maybe. Well, definitely, considering who the Baroness turns out to be. But for a bit, because I was thinking, we're not getting enough of Homily right now. We're not getting enough of her personality. We're not really getting any kind of interactions between Homily and Shisheshin that were like good enough for this kind of quick love story to happen.
I think they're such fascinating characters to follow, and I am really loving their connection. I love that their connection is like romantic, but it's also like platonic at the same time. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I really love the way that they communicate with each other and the way that they treat each other. It's just really sweet.
Shisheshin is showing so many feelings, but from Homily, I'm just like, I'm not really saying it because she's just like very focused on this family curse and proving to her family that she's not a disappointment and stuff like that.
It was so sad too because Homily, she ended up showing Shisheshin all the like bruises on her arms and on her neck that her mother has given her. Like, her mother is like physically abusive to this girl too, and it is just so freaking sad.
There's a lot of like point of view of a monster and how it really is just the perspective of whose like eyes you're in on what you're going to think about somebody or how you're going to, you know, perceive something. And it says, this was the same mistake so many humans made, believing someone would leap over trauma when it hurt them badly enough. That's good. Like, damn, she nailed it.
When the Baroness is like, people like you make my daughter grow into a disappointment, I will have a word with you soon, in private, with no eavesdropping gods and none of my children for you to hide behind. And Shisheshin is like, I look forward to it. And there was a sharpness as Baroness Wolfire said, you look forward to it? Shisheshin guessed how to please her. I look forward to it, your exaltation. And the Baroness says, there's an obedient girl. I was a little bit like, This might be wrong of me, but I was like, the Baroness and Shisheshin. Because the Baroness is a bitch. She's awful. She wants to kill people, like the families of the soldiers who couldn't protect her daughter and stuff like that. Like, she isn't a nice person. But then again, Shisheshin shouldn't be either because she's supposed to be a monster. So I was kind of like, there's some tension there, you know what I mean?
Speaking of, as I've said so many times, the Baroness being an absolute bad bitch is, they are going into the forest to find the worm, you know? And it says, nobody had the boldness to ride alone except the Baroness. She's like, yeah, get behind me. Get behind me, losers. I'm on my way. I mean, of course, it turns out she is a volatile monster, so that kind of checks out, but still.
God, it was such a beautiful moment when Shisheshin said she was mourning the realization that she'd fallen in love with someone's pain about Homily. Like, dude, they are so cute. Like, I'm still really shipping this. I think they're adorable.
Okay, this is another one of those, like, wow, coming from a monster is showing so much of humanity and how humanity gets things wrong and how it can improve. Is, she says, for years I thought it was a great love to plant my eggs in someone, to make them a nest for our children. With your generosity, with everything you are, I thought you were the perfect nest, the perfect feast. It was an ugly mistake. My ideas were wrong. I was wrong. I almost made that choice without you. And I love that because it's really speaking on like society and how you don't have to do those things and you don't Like, one, it's both of the people's decision, like, say, for if they want to have children. It's not one person's decision. It's both of them. And even though tradition says that you need to get married and have kids, or you need to be straight and have kids, you need to be a Christian, you need to be conservative, you need to be Republican, you need to be Democrat, you need to be whatever. She's like, no, I recognize that I was wrong and I am working to change my mindset and you're helping me, because she's like, I see those weeds and I have to pull them out by the root. I have to focus on me, look in the mirror. Okay. So yeah, their love story, everything to me.
And then a little bit later on, when it's just Shisheshan and the Baroness, before the big reveal, when Shisheshan asks what happened with the previous worm who was supposed to be Shisheshan's mother, and that's when Shisheshan's like, oh, she's killed my mother kind of thing. Well, Shisheshan asks about it, and Baroness Wolfire's entire cheek curled up in a smirk. Ah, you want a ghost story? You want to know what it was like when the horrible worm ravaged my husband? That way you'll fool me into thinking we're getting familiar. And I was like, you know what? Yes, I kind of do want you two to get familiar.
I really hope that Gabby also talked about this. I really hope she also talked about this, because this was such a big moment for me. Like, black tab, that means it's a favorite.
There was a moment too where Homily kind of talked about how she despises kissing and how she like isn't really comfortable with like intimacy or affection.
People say that it's supposed to be like the world stops and it's like a movie and sparks fly. And she's like, that's not what this feels like at all.
She appreciates, you know, having Shisheshan because she's like, I've never felt obligated to like do those things with you.
And Homily's like, did you like that? Like, how do you feel about kissing? Shisheshan stiffened. I did not mean to be ungrateful. You don't like them either? The way I screamed. That was impossible. Someone with Homily's ability to connect to others surely loved all sorts of physical intimacy. It was so many humans' favorite thing. It was unfathomable that this woman was like her, and in this way of always. My asexual heart.
And so, like, I'm almost wondering, like, is her character, like, aromantic, or is she asexual? Like, is that going to be talked about more or explored? But, like, I love that. Like, I love that they can have this really close and, like, intimate relationship and be together, but they don't have to, like, do those things that make them uncomfortable, like kissing.
I love that. And I love that it's like, oh my God, like, she doesn't like that kind of intimacy. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that she's not intimate. Shisheshan let herself be honest for a sentence. I think I despise them. I've never had a partner with whom I didn't feel obliged to perform that. Thank you, Siobhan. You're welcome for me being myself. This is written by a man.
But it turns out that the Baroness,
Homily's mother, like the freaking bitch, is the one who is actually the monster the whole time, which was interesting. Like, I didn't really see that plot twist coming.
I created you! An ignorant person would call me your mother. What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, did she eat the Baroness and then to look like her? I am unwell.
I was shocked. I mean, I thought the Baroness was dead. And I was like, oh, that was kind of a good kill because it came out of nowhere. It shocked me. But then the Baroness starts moving. And yeah, it's like a Baroness-shaped thing. And it's something that has taken her form.
I am calling things well before they happen. But I don't feel like, oh, like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I'm like, oh, I knew it. Yes. Like, oh my God. The fact I wrote in the book, like 30 pages before it happened, I was like, is the Baroness a worm? Is the Baroness a monster? And then I was like, no, because how could she have like had children? And I'm like, oh my God, I was right.
Humans are clothing. Baroness Wolfire is an exceptional mask.
Scooped and double down gagged. Shisheshan is like, what are you? You're serious, you wretched, ignorant speck of a thing. I created you. Years ago, I planted you in that shitheel Baron. An ignorant person would call me your mother. Gagged.
And then she basically tells her, tell me where your egg sac is and I'll go. Because the only reason why she's been like tracking her down, I guess, is because she wants her egg sac. Because I guess, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but I think the egg sac really like extends your life. by eating it. And so I think that the mother, she wants it from her children. Like, she's going after her children to get their egg sacs because she wants to extend her own life. It's very much a situation like that mother in Tangled, I think, where she's like, I want to stay young forever, so I'm going to use you in order to do that.
That's when Baroness Wolfire's hand caught her by the face. At once, it felt like it couldn't be Baroness Wolfire, since her fingers were too lengthy, engulfing Shisheshan's skull like the roots of a tree, fingertips digging into her scalp. Squawking at the grip, Shisheshan grabbed for her hand only to be dragged up into the air. Her skull cracked inside her head. Her eyes came loose. This is the kind of descriptive writing we're working with here, and I am loving it. You see this? Yeah, that was my reaction.
But yeah, the whole Baroness scene, that was when I was like, okay, maybe I don't ship the Baroness and Shisheshan.
I created you.
You know, that wouldn't be right.
That scene where the Baroness and Shisheshan are fighting was like actually scary. It was actually scary. Like, the horror in this is done so well where it's not like scary, but it's grotesque but beautifully written, and I'm obsessed with that.
I love that we spent so much of this part of the book, you know, with Shisheshan kind of like struggling, like wanting to tell Homily like the truth about her and how she's kind of been lying to her this whole time about like her name and like who she is, like the fact that she's not a human and that she's a monster.
What can possibly happen next with the story? Obviously, Shisheshan coming clean to Homily, and that's what we think she's doing.
Shisheshan actually confessed to her all of her feelings for her, but also that she's been lying to her and that she hasn't been giving her the right name, and the fact that she's actually a monster and she's letting her know like there's no curse and this whole thing has been set up or whatever.
And that she wanted to put her eggs in Homily and make her an ex kind of thing.
And then boom, we find out that she's not actually talking to Homily, but she's talking to her sister.
It actually turns out to be Epigram. In that whole reveal as well, I was like, oh shit, you've got me by the throat again, Mr. Wiswell. You've got me by the throat.
And then the sister is like, oh my god, like going to Homily and being like, can you believe that this monster has been lying to you the whole time? And that like she's not who she says she is and whatever the fuck. And then freaking Homily just goes and like slits her sister's throat.
Slit her. Oh, wow. Oh. Shut up. Oh my god, no. Then Homily slit her sister's throat. Goosebumps.
Homily killing Epigram, though, like, I was like, finally, Homily's doing something.
I was like, wait, what? Like, I did not expect that. Like, that was intense. I was like, oh damn girl, okay, like geez.
I'm not saying like she's ever been weak, she hasn't been. She's been used as a doormat by her family, and now we're seeing Homily like do something so physical, and I was so shocked. Homily slit her sister's throat.
Every mic dropped. Every Mike that has ever existed dropped, including M-I-K-E. Every man named Mike is currently on the ground. What the fuck?
I mean, Homily, you know, like, her family is so shit. Like, I don't blame her for 1 second for wanting to, like, get back at her family. But, like, damn, I was not expecting her to just, like, kill her sister in such a brutal way like that.
And then Homily's the one apologizing to Shisheshan that it was her family who put a curse on her because her family has been hunting her down.
Homily just kind of, like, confirms with her, and she's like, so there is no curse. And she's like, no.
Which we kind of knew. We kind of knew. So now, Homily knows Shisheshan's secret. Pretty much all of Homily's family is dead now. What could possibly happen next? We still have this much left.
The action really just stepped up in those last 100 pages, and even though at times I'm personally finding it to be a little bit hard to follow, I am loving this book a lot because of the writing.
Honestly, Gavin, you picking part 6 to be the last thing that we read before doing an update, cruel and unusual behavior. Because the very last thing is it having Homily kill Shisheshan? Presumably. You know, I'm sure that's not what actually happens, but how dare you? How dare you? Like, do you know that I had to flip the page? I had to. Like, I had to before I gave the update. I had to read the next page because I was so scared that Shisheshan was dead. Is she? I don't know. Let's go to the next part.
Again, if there is any tentacle porn, I'm out.
Was that good? That was better, right? Because you can cut around stuff. Homily professed her love by digging a second crossbow bolt out of Shisheshan's body. It was so much clearer a declaration of affection than any of those speeches spun by poets and playwrights and stuffed into the mouths of actors who pretended to be enamored. One could only pretend to love in language. True love was a woman sinking up to her elbows in viscera, delicately removing hooks from her rigid tissues. For all the words humans spoke about seeing into one another, Homily truly saw into Shisheshan. There was no inch of her abdominal cavity that she had missed.
Right, I'm back with the final update because I just finished reading Someone You Can Build a Nest In.
I am so happy to be telling you that my feelings have not changed. 5 stars, 6 stars, 10 stars. Favorite of the year, favorite of my life. I love this book.
What a sweet and wholesome ending this book had.
And I did end up loving the end of this story too. It was both like quite exciting with the 7th part and taking down the Baroness in like the kind of plan that they have.
Where Shisheshan actually like shapeshifted into her sister to try and disguise herself to look like her sister so that they could go and like confront the mother together. I thought that was really interesting and like something I didn't see coming. I was like, ooh, that's weird.
Versus kind of the wholesomeness of the final part.
I wasn't sure what I was expecting as far as the ending of this book was gonna go because, you know, this is a horror book, it's fantasy, and it does have romance, but I wasn't expecting to get like a happily ever after kind of ending, and I feel like that's kind of what we got.
I guess you could call the epilogue of the story, and oh my god, they're raising an offspring called Epilogue together? Like,
Homily naming Shisheshan's offspring. I like that they never call it like a baby. They never call it a child. It's like, it's the offspring.
I also like adore the fact that they named the offspring Epilogue.
That is the cutest thing ever.
Can you think of anything more sweet and wholesome, but also kind of horrific? You can't really.
Because they were trying to name it like something like after her siblings who had died, and so they named the offspring Epilogue, which I just thought was really funny, but then this book didn't even have an epilogue.
It's like this book got an epilogue without having an epilogue. Like,
we could have gotten an epilogue from Epilogue's point of view in the future. Like, that would have been cute.
So I hate epilogues, but I kind of love the clever way that an epilogue is brought into this as the 8th and final part of this story. I thought it was such a good way to end it.
One scene that cracked me up at the beginning of part 7 was when Shisheshan ended up eating Homily's sister like right in front of her, you know, because like the last part ended with her, you know, slicing her sister's throat and like killing her own sister, and that was really shocking. But then it was even more funny when Shisheshan ended up like eating her sister right in front of her, and Homily was just like, oh, okay, like that's what we're doing?
I thought it was very clever, the plan that Shisheshan and Homily have.
That was intelligent. That was great. But what I thought was so smart and sweet and sad was the first thing that she does when she shows up to Homily dressed as Epigram is say, you know, do I sound like her? Like, she knows she looks like her, but she's like, do I sound like her? And she asks like 3 times to be like, are you sure I sound like her? She's like, yes, you do, you do. And she's like, okay, good. Well, then I have something to say. And she's like, what? And Shisheshan goes, I'm sorry for what I did to you. And it's like that closure that Homily gets to get from her horrible family of abusers, that like she gets to look in her abuser's eyes and get told they're sorry for what they did to her. Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Sad, beautiful, tragic. I cannot.
I also liked the scene of them trying to like serve the mother with the rosemary wine because they know that, you know, she can't have the rosemary because it's like poisonous to her as a monster.
What was so freaking smart is when Homily and Shisheshan are like talking to the army and are like, oh my God, like, you know, we've all been drinking rosemary wine because rosemary is like poison to the worm or the monsters. It's like, we've all been drinking it. Like, I mean, you have too, right, mother? And it's like, and she's like, I mean, I'm sure that y'all all have seen her drink it like every day. Silence, looking around. I mean, anyone? Has anyone seen her? No one? Oh, that's what do you mean? That's crazy. And it's like, oh, why don't you just drink it now? And she's like, how dare you suspect anything of me? And Homily's like, oh my God, she would absolutely never. But like, why say no now? in front of all these people. And it sows the discourse. It sows the discourse of people are like, wait a minute. I don't think I've ever actually seen her drink rosemary wine. Is she the monster now? And I thought that was brilliant because if you're going to start a war, you don't start it by attacking the queen. You start it by disbanding the army. And I was like, oh my God, that is so brilliant. Nailed it. Like, you just won the war. Like, you won it. Like, I know it took a lot more to do that, but like in my head, I was like, yeah, signed, sealed, delivered. We've won.
They really do manage to trick the Baroness at first, and then the Baroness tricks them. So like when the Baroness was like, oh, do you remember when we did this? And Shisheshan is like, oh yeah, sure. I knew it was a trap. Can't get one over on me.
I did think the final confrontation between Shisheshan and then the mother character at the end was a little bit confusing to follow for me. Because, you know, Shisheshan, she keeps being like, okay, like, I'll give you this, like, sack of eggs thing if you promise that Homily is gonna like remain safe. And I was just kind of confused because I was like, so if she gives her the sack of eggs, does she die? Like, does Shisheshan die after she gives that up? Or like, I was kind of unclear to me if it was like life-threatening for her to lose the sack of eggs. Like, I was just kind of confused by that.
And then a scene with the Baroness in the street as the monster, and everyone sees her. Like, you can't beat that really. Like, you can just picture it very vividly in your mind, the way it's described, the way that John writes this story. It's so described in a way that you could just see it as a movie playing in your head or an 8-episode TV show.
Wrote a perfect book, in my opinion. Perfect. Like, every single note that he hit the perfect tenure, hit the perfect height, musical note is what I meant.
The Baroness Wolfire staggered away from her out into the streets of Underlook. Most of the Baroness's head was missing. Fluids drained out of her exposed arm like from a ditch at the peak of a rainstorm. A few bubbles of something that had once been flesh rose from the neckline of her armor. When she had turned left, the largest of the bubbles popped. Like, it's just, it's so visceral. And again, like, there are so many moments where it like really gets under my skin.
God, why was I just thinking like the, we did it, Joe! That's what I was thinking when they won this.
But it's balanced with the fact that you have like these really sweet characters really, and you're like rooting for like Homily and Shisheshan. That is just kind of perfect, like the perfect balance. By part 7, I was really rooting for it. I was like really happy for it. I was like, yes, I'm really starting to see Homily and Shisheshan work really well together, and I could see them as a thriving couple. And I love when after the Baroness is like, gone, Shisheshan asks Homily, do love stories often end this way? And Homily stroked her side from over the cloak. Why do you think it's over? Oh, like, isn't that just so sweet? Like, this book is filled with sweet quotes and sweet lines like that. Shisheshan didn't know how to go on a date. Like, can you just, like, picture a monster like Shisheshan going on a date? Like, it's so cute. Because I'm nervous being myself for you. Oh, like...
I liked that they were trying to like go on dates. They were trying to like figure out names for the offspring that they had. I liked how the offspring was described as like they didn't know if it was more of like a child or a pet.
It makes me want to explode and have my blood just go all over this library and all of my guts just like spill out and everything. Like that, like, it's so sickly sweet. It's like sickly sweet. It's just, and usually I hate sickly sweet. But like, because it's coming from a monster who was never really loved before, it hits different. I also really love the fact that Homily is still suffering after killing her own sister.
Homily is dealing with a lot of like PTSD at the end of this book because she has a lot of guilt over like killing her sister, and she keeps waking up and screaming like, it should have been me, it should have been me. Like, she's holding on to a lot of anxiety about all of the stuff that just happened to her.
She is feeling the consequences of her actions. It's not just being glazed over, it's not just being like brushed aside, but she is actually having nightmares. She is saying, I killed my sister, and like those actions are coming back to her. So it's not like she just like did it, which like was an incredible moment really, but like the fact that she is still feeling like the PTSD from it just shows you just how well this book is written, in my opinion.
I love too that she like was talking about like the nesting eggs thing and the way that she said she was like trying to hold them back because she didn't want it to harm her. And Homily asks her, she's like, but it looks like it's really painful for you to hold them back. And she's like, well, it is painful. And she says, but you are not a nest, you are more. Like, dude, they were so cute. Oh my god.
And I love when Sheshin is like talking to her about like overcoming that panic and the anxiety. And Sheshin shares her own story, and then she says, I became those things, I still am those things, but I became more than those things too, so will you. Oh,
I loved all the discussion too about grief in this book, and how like grief is not something that's like simple and easy to fix, and how that's just something that's gonna take time to recover from.
like how in the world does a monster give that kind of advice?
There was this one part on page 245 that was so sweet, that was also talking about like how Shishishen just had all this love for her and she didn't even know what to call it. I love when she says, I don't know what you call it, the thing that is not flesh or bone or organs. In the panic, I needed to make sure the greater thing was safe. The demonic laughs you make at things that are not jokes, the way you ask to touch me without words, the pleasure I get from writing next to you, the talking that I mind less than talking to others, the willingness to be harmed myself before letting you be harmed. Like, it's so sweet because she's like, I needed to protect those things, and she doesn't even know what to call that, and I'm like, it's called love, bitch! Like, you love her!
I also love when Sheshin is like trying to like read. Like she doesn't really want to read, but Homily is trying to teach her a little bit, like a Beauty and the Beast moment. And Homily says, it's normal to be intimidated, and then Sheshin says, I'm not intimidated by books, I will crush them in a fight. Like, come on. Come on, that's brilliant. That's genius. Like, yeah, I guess I can also beat up all of my books too. Am I intimidated by the 1,000 books on my TBR? No, because I could take them all in a fight. So you all better watch yourself around me.
I didn't expect to connect with this as much as I did. Like, I'm honestly kind of shocked. I think I actually would read a sequel. Like, if this author ever came out with a sequel that involved these characters, or even, like, Epilogue's character in the future, I think I actually would be interested in reading it, which is just so shocking to me, especially because not only am I not a big fantasy reader in general, but also because I don't like to read series, and, like, I would usually never say that, but I feel like I'm really connected to these characters, and that I would.
Epilogue is so cute. I'm just gonna say it. This morning the creature had been slipping the nails out of doorways. For weeks it had been collecting metal objects like candlesticks and forks. That's so adorable. I mean, I know it's like kind of like a little monster offspring, but it's so adorable as well.
I really loved the characters. I feel like I really connected with the characters. I loved Shishishen and Homily both equally. I love that they really like balance out each other very well. They're kind of like a yin and a yang, because I feel like Shishishen is such a freaking badass. Like, she's so cool. The fact that she's a monster and she hibernates and she's a shapeshifter and she's like able to produce this offspring somehow. Like, I don't know. She's just so fascinating. Like, as a character, she's really cool. And I also just kind of loved her like I don't give a fuck attitude, or like I don't know how to feel things kind of personality. I found her to be very relatable in a lot of ways because of that, but then I equally loved Homily because I do feel like Homily was like opposite of her in a lot of ways, where like she cared a lot, like way too much probably, about her family who was treating her like shit. But I feel like Homily is just a very kind, very caring and like giving person, and I just love that balance of like the way that they treat each other. Like, it was just so beautiful. Like, it was so beautifully written.
And yeah, I just love the end of it, like the fact that Homily was waiting for Sheshin after the hibernation.
She needs to hibernate. Like, that's part of like how she functions as like a monster or a worm, is that she needs to hibernate for a prolonged period of time. And so she's nervous though, because she doesn't know how Epilogue, how this like kid monster child thing is gonna be around Homily when she's not there. So she's kind of scared. And so then at the very end we do get the scenes of like Shishishen going and hibernating, and then after she comes out of this hibernation, she looks up and she sees, you know, Epilogue with like the whole mouth, Epilogue's whole mouth is like eating Homily's arm, and she like runs over, she's like, oh my god, holy shit, like she's harming you. And then Homily's just like, oh no, like lol, this is just what we do, we just like play with each other, like we're just so playful. And they have like such a cute little relationship now, and I'm like, oh my god, this is adorable.
You know, in the romances, like there's an epilogue of like, oh my god, like it's years in the future, like, and they either like are pregnant, have kids, whatever, they're married. In this, it was like, oh, we don't even need to like do that. It's all wrapped up in this little package of epilogue, this weird ass blob that they created together. That's like their kid now.
I love like this world. Like, I love the kind of way that this world can exist with like these like monsters and like the way that they work and the side of humans too. It's just like there's a mishmash of things going on in my head in terms of like how this book is portrayed and like how this world should be portrayed. And I just think it's a beautiful blend, really. It's like a beautiful mix.
And I love too with the final line of this book, because she's like, well, how did you make it through the whole hibernation? Like, how did you do that? And I love how Homily says, every day was a brutal mystery which we got through together. We learned about each other. The trick was realizing we both wanted the same thing. The thing that was worth going through all this for. That's what brought us together. And then she was like, what was it? What did you both want so badly? And she says, you. And like, that's how the book ends. Like, that is some cute, soft shit. Okay, that was some soft shit. For how like dark and gory and gruesome and brutal and sad some of this book was, the ending was soft as fuck. And I loved it. I really did enjoy the ending. I enjoyed so much about this book.
So I will probably give this book, that's a hard one. Maybe I will give this book 4.5. I don't think it's quite a 5-star for me personally, but I do think it's pretty great. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it.
Gavin, please. Gavin, listen to me. Pick out everything I read from now until the end of time. Choose by TBR. If I pick up a book and you think, nah, I'll put it down. If I put a book back at a bookstore that you go, you need to read it, I'll buy it. You nailed it. This is me!
I think overall, I'm probably gonna end up giving this one around 4 stars. Like, I don't think it was the perfect 5-star read for me, just because sometimes with the writing and like the certain battle scenes and things, I was getting a little bit lost with like what's happening. So the story was a little bit hard for me to follow at times, but I just really genuinely loved these characters and I wasn't expecting to connect with it as much as I did. So I feel right giving this 4 stars, which is so crazy. So like, thank you so much to Gavin for picking this, because I don't think I ever would have picked this up on my own. So like, thank you for making me read a book that I actually ended up enjoying.
I don't know what Gavin and Gabby thought about this, but I ate. No crumbs. No crumbs. Gavin, thank you so much for having me on your channel. I love you. You are such an amazing friend. You're such a sweet person, kind person, hardworking at like to the point of like detriment to yourself. Work so hard. Like, take a break. Take a sit. Take a sit. Take a sat. Take a seat. Thank you so much. And I was about to do my outro. This is not my video.
So that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave all your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you agreed with mine, Gabby's and Katie's opinions down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the video that we did for Gabby's channel, which was for Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I have it linked down below. And I am very much looking forward to doing A Certain Hunger by Chelsea J. Summers for Katie's channel very soon. So keep an eye out for that one too. I'll give a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting my channel. If you'd like to join my Patreon, then the link is in the description. And I do want to give a huge thank you as well to Gabby and Katie for being part of this video series and for sharing their thoughts with us. And Ash also wants to say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Bye. Bye.